What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. This is Forgo, and today we're going to talk about Immortal Nyx. And the thing to remember about Immortal Nyx is that you need darkness and dot explosion. For the first team, you just want to make sure you're applying that darkness and it will stack up. And what that's going to do is it's going to enable you to do a lot more damage to this boss. And all of that darkness that's stacked up is going to carry over to the second team where you're going to want to have dot explosion. Now, dot explosion actually works on both teams. You'll actually be decreasing the boss defenses and increasing your attack on both teams when you're applying dots. So it's actually a good idea to have a dot damage dealer on both teams. You don't really necessarily have to have one depending on the team, but that is exactly what I'm going to show you today. I have come up with a Immortal Dungeon guide. So if you take a look at this guide here, you can see that we have, note the color doesn't matter. There's no type advantage or disadvantage for this boss at all. And, we're starting out with Geese. Now, this little icon here, I'm pretty sure y'all figured out that means darkness. And you see darkness, the first team. Darkness really only matters on the first team. I mean, on the second team, if you have it, that's fine. Extra dot is a good thing because you're going to be doing more damage over time. That's what dot means. But it's really the first team that you want to make sure you have your darkness damage dealer on. And you also want to make sure that you have synergy. And that's really where these guides come in handy, is that I try to set up all these teams with synergy. Now you see here, you got a little exploding sign here. That's for dot explosion. I'm pretty sure y'all figured that out. And, try to make things a little bit simpler to understand. And then you have your leaderships, you got the darkness characters, you got the dot characters, and it says second team for here. And then you have the support. So you can set up a team surrounding Nightmare Geese and the leadership because he has that 20% PG rate leadership. And a lot of these leaderships are PG rate leaderships, not all of them. And a little disclaimer is, I can't put in every single team. We do have about 15 separate leaderships, but actually, you could go further. There are more options than just what's on here, but I think these are going to be some of the most popular options that you can actually use, although some of them you probably wouldn't want to use, but I think a lot of them were going to come in very, very handy. Very strong teams here. So you got Geese Rug out here with the darkness, and because he gives PG rate to attack type fighters, every one of these characters here are attack type fighters. Now, I do believe that Geese 14 would be the best because if you have his 3PG, Nightmare Geese 3PG, on him, you're going to be able to stall that timer for a long, long time. And I got a recovery stone on my Geese 14, and actually that works super, super well. I can do a lot of damage on that first team pretty damn easy with them. Of course, Eileen's going to be a monster. These characters here aren't going to do as good. They're okay. But it's not like Immortal Most where the boss gets stunned whenever the dot explosion is being applied. Immortal Nyx doesn't do that. He just keeps on attacking. So these characters that don't have a lot of survivability, don't have immunity, they can be a little bit difficult to keep alive, in all honesty. Really, Eileen and Geese are going to be the best as far as dot explosion, at least with Nightmare Geese in the leadership. And then you got some attack type fighters here for their supports. And, and you could use other attack type fighters. You don't have to use them. You could use Genjuro, you could use Haomaru, for gold borders if you actually have them. I didn't put every single, team or character on this list because honestly, it's just such an insane amount. And then you got, Orochi here, who gives the leadership to boss fighters. Well, a PG rate leadership to them. Well, Nightmare Geese and Chrysalid are boss fighters, and both of them apply darkness. And Orochi, Chris, and Xion are boss type fighters. Now again, their survivability is going to be questionable against Immortal Nyx, but they can put in work, guys. They can do a lot of damage. And remember, you got two teams, so you could easily set these guys up for the first team and then set up a different team for your second team. Now, then you got Iori, right? He's got the darkness. There's no dot explosion for SS characters yet. I'm pretty sure that'll be the next thing, Yeah, I'm sorry, there's no dot here. I was pointing right here, but there's no dot explosion for the SS characters, but you do have the supports. So you could always put Iori on the second team, or you could even put him on the first team and just try doing a team without dot. Honestly, the SS team is so powerful and so strong. You might not be able to need to apply any dot at all to do enough damage to Immortal Nix to get that 500 million, even on one team. I imagine if you have maxed out Iori, maxed out Mai, and Kyo, you're gonna do pretty damn insane because you are still applying that darkness. You're still weakening the boss's defense. You're still applying a lot of extra damage. You're not weakening his defenses, but you're going to be able to apply a lot more damage. And then you got Athena, of course, with her PG rate leadership. And then she's synergized with the Ori. Again, you got darkness right there. And then you could have Eileen, Heihachi. Eileen's really going to be the best. And Chris even has darkness as well, which is pretty potent, guys. Like, this is actually a really, really strong team. All these teams are strong. And another thing is, these aren't in really any specific order as far as, you know, weakest to strongest or strongest to weakest. I just kind of put them up there as I go. And then, you know, the 7 Knights team is deadly. They are deadly, my friends. You got Darkness here with Meliodas. You got King for the dot explosion. You got Merlin for the PG rate leadership that applies to 7 deadly knights. The 7 deadly sins characters. I kept saying seven deadly knights. I don't know why. 7, it's easy to get them confused. I do that a lot. And then you have the 7 deadly sins characters right here that you can use as supports. Bond will actually put in quite a bit of work. Man, he's got a lot of damn survivability. He is a tanky bastard thanks to that immunity from his core. Just freaking hard to kill, that little pecker. And then you got K. There's no red darkness. So you can set up a team like this here, you can set up for your second team. You could have K in the leadership, and then you could have, you know, just some synergy going along with them. Now, more than likely, you might be using Geese for your dot on your first team, but if you aren't, you can put Geese on the second team, especially if you have that 3PG from Nightmare Geese, and then you can throw in one of these characters. If you don't have Geese, you don't have any dot, you can just put K and then 2 other supports with him and just not have that dot. As long as you applied that darkness on a first team, it still can put in work. You know, not all of us have the same characters. Not all of us have the same builds. You know, we have to kind of finagle which characters we're going to use for which teams, you know, to figure out which are going to have the best survivability and do the most damage. And that's why I like doing these Immortal Dungeon guides. I mean, I haven't made one for Immortal Rock. We had all those bugs. And so far, I did a couple runs against this last night, and I didn't have any problems with bugs. I do know they still exist. They're still there. But I was switching my characters. I was playing on semi-auto, and it wasn't bugging out on me. I didn't have any problems last night. Let me know in the comments if you did. And then we have some interesting ones here with Jeanette. You know, she's a green. She has that PG rate for green. Very tanky, very strong character. And then you got your darkness characters here. Nightmare Geese obviously going to be the best choice. Lady Geese can die pretty easy. I mean, she does have an immunity in her core, but it's on a long cooldown. She dies pretty easy. And then you got, you know, your dot explosion, which is pretty cool. From these 3 characters, you got Lynn here, so Lynn could probably put in some work for you. And then you got the other green fighters that you could use. And obviously, I think Shane and Guinness are going to be the best. Meliodas is going to be very, very strong here. And then you got some dot explosion with Geese here, right? And you can put him on the second team because there are no red darkness characters. And Geese's PG rate leadership only applies to red characters. So you could just have some red supports. You can just use these red supports right here. And then you got a couple different leaderships. I mean, look, you could add BS Rugal here for a leadership because this leadership applies to all fighters. I mean, there's other characters I could use for other leaderships. I just wanted to set up 15 teams. And then, so we're using Chrysalid here that gives leadership to boss fighters. He's got the darkness. Geese has got darkness. You're getting a lot of extra darkness there. You got the explosion, which would be really awesome. And then you got Rugal. So, I mean, if you were setting up a first team, you would have, well, really, you would have Geese in the leadership, in my opinion, and then you would have Chrysalid, and then you would have one of the dot dealers here. If you were setting a second team, then I'd probably just have, you know, maybe you could just have Chrysalid, maybe a dot, maybe a Rugal. I mean, it's really up to you how you want to set up these teams. And then, of course, we got Dellins, who does apply darkness. He's an insane character. And then we have these blues, and both of the Leonas do have dot explosion. You already have the darkness, you have the dot. So you definitely, you know, whenever you see these darkness characters, you really want them on the first team. All these characters with this little icon, all these characters in this column here, you want them on the first team. That's very, very important. And then put whatever team for your second. I really would try to have dot on both teams if I could, but it's not a necessity depending on how well your characters are built. And then, of course, you got the other blues. I mean, honestly, this blue team is just nuts. I mean, if you have Dellin And then you have a dot exploding character. I mean, Leona will be freaking insane, guys. And she's always in the game if you do have Delans. And, I mean, you're not going to get PG rate from these two, but the damage is just nuts. So, I mean, you can put Eileen in the leadership, who gives, you know, increase to purple fighters. You have your dot explosion there, right? Then you could put Chris on the team, who has darkness. He's a purple character. He'll get buffed up by Eileen. I mean, there's all kinds of different team compositions that you can do. And then you have Rugal, Merlin, and Zero. Obviously, these two are going to be the best. So that concludes except for, well, let me quickly talk about Elizabeth here. Now, Elizabeth's pretty interesting because she offers a PG rate leadership to only defensive fighters. So you got your darkness fighters here that are defensive, but there are no dot exploding defensive fighters yet. I'm sure there will be. Probably be an SS character in the future. And then we have our supports here. And, you know, Rudy, Nameless is going to be freaking insane, guys. Really, both of these characters are actually going to be really good as a support because they both have long 3 PGs. Even their defaults are fairly long. Terrific characters for this. Again, you have no type advantage or disadvantage because Nyx has no color. And you definitely want this team to be on your second. Elizabeth would be really great because of the PG rate leadership, and she has the decreased damage received on one of her skills. I mean, she's just a very tanky character, hard to kill, and she's a defensive character, right? So for your second team, you could easily have, you know, these guys on there. I mean, you really don't need darkness on a second team, but maybe you're in a situation where you're like, you know what? I got Meliodas, I got Psyche, I got these, you know, Nameless, and I got Elizabeth. I'll put them on the second team, and I'll set up a different team for my first team. Like I said earlier, guys, there's all kinds of different team compositions that you can use for these guides. It's absolutely insane how many different ones there are. So that concludes the Immortal Dungeon Guide for Nyx. Let me know what teams you guys are using for Immortal Nyx. And I do stream on Twitch at 9 p.m. GMT plus 7 time. The link will be in the description below. And the link for the Immortal Dungeon Guide will be in the description below. Also, you can just join me on Discord. And I actually will have this in my Discord as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Y'all take care and have a good one. See ya.